Welcome back, Helldivers. Now today we are going to make a tier list for the Stratagem weapons specifically against the Illuminids only. Now I know what some of you are thinking.
Shit.
But let's embrace the fact that this opens up a discussion point for our weapons that we have here, and it's just a fun topic to kind of go over and talk about. Now, before we get into the weapons, we need to kind of talk over some ground rules, some things we're going to need to consider when ranking these weapons, because there is a little bit of nuance going on here. For example, some of these stratagem weapons do not perform as well unless you pair them with a certain armor perk, and that can make a world of difference. But I think ultimately I will be ranking them based on, I would say, like their best possible situation, so that would be with that armor perk. But just know, if you don't have like an armor perk that I'm talking about, then they are going to be lower on the tier list than where I put them. The next thing we should talk about is the fact that my playstyle, my list, is going to be different than your playstyle and your list. And hopefully I do a good enough job explaining, why I'm putting certain weapons in some places, but obviously we're not going to agree on everything. And I encourage you, if you do disagree, leave a comment below on maybe why I'm wrong. And here's probably maybe my most controversial point here is the fact that the Illuminids, they are probably the easiest faction to fight. Now that's not exactly a bad thing. Just because they're the easiest doesn't mean they're not the most fun. I find them the most fun actually, but like I just said, they are the easiest faction to fight. So a lot of these stratagem weapons are very effective against them. So when going through my tier list here, I have S tier. That is probably just going to be my favorite picks from A tier. I'm only going to have a few of them up there. And then obviously A tier there, that's going to be the best in class for their like almost respective categories. Like we have our rocket launchers, machine guns, more of our miscellaneous weapons, precision weapons, so I would say the best in class out of those, that'll be an A tier. B tier is going to be completely solid, very viable weapons. There's really not going to be much wrong with them at all. You can bring them and they will perfectly perform for you. No issues at all. C tier, that's going to be more of a niche pick, not something that you would pick just on the fly. You really have to, I would say, like have a build around it or something like that, or just know that you're just going to be focusing on one job. And then we got D tier there at the caboose, and that's just going to be, I'm not going to recommend weapons that I put into D tier. I think maybe they just don't belong, and maybe there's not enough of the Illuminate to really justify bringing them, because again, right now at the Illuminate, we don't have all their units that they're going to be throwing against us. They don't have a massive target in their army at the moment. So I do expect more Illuminate forces to come maybe next week, month, who knows. So those are my ground rules to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the rankings. I think we'll start off with the machine guns. I'll move myself to the bottom over here so you can see everything. So the machine guns, we have the Stalwart, we have the regular machine gun, and then we have the heavy machine gun. Let's go ahead and start with the Stalwart. This is the light variant, but you can reload it while running. This is an excellent stratagem weapon. The only thing I don't recommend this thing against is the harvesters. You can technically shoot the harvesters in the eye area with it, but the guys, that takes a long time, and I don't think it's worth it. It does not do it efficiently, but it does take out everything else in the illuminated field, so I am going to put it in B tier. It is a solid pick. It is good. Again, the only thing that this thing doesn't take out is the harvesters. And then next up, we have the machine gun and the heavy machine gun. I'm just going to throw both of these into A tier. These things kill everything really fast, really effectively, great ammo economy. These are just, they're almost like jack of all trades, but they kill everything like at a really high level. These two machine guns are really good. Now, which one you pick kind of comes down to your own personal preference. The regular machine gun has a little bit more control, medium penetration ammunition, but the heavy machine gun, obviously more damage, but a little bit unwieldy. Both of these I kind of recommend being probably stationary when shooting them, but again, the machine gun you can wield a little bit easier, and so you can hip fire it, and I think it's just, it's easier to manage. So I kind of put the machine gun a little bit ahead of the heavy machine gun, but just know these two could flip-flop. They're both really, really good against the Illuminate at the moment. And then let's move on to I would call them the more precision weapons. That's going to be the Railgun and the AMR. We'll start off with the Railgun here. So the Railgun, I kind of want to put in B tier, but at like the top of B tier, as in it could be at the bottom of A tier, it could be at the top of B tier. It sits somewhere like very much on the line, because The Railgun, the only issue with it is its rate of fire and the fact that the Illuminate have shields and then the sights on it as well. You have to be pretty close with this thing to get, I would say, again, your precision shots off. Obviously, that's not going to be the case for everybody. Some people are going to be just fine with like the base iron sights for this thing. But for me, yeah, those sights don't help it at all at the range that I want to use this thing at. But if you can find a sweet spot, especially against a harvester and targeting that leg joint, yeah, the Railgun puts him down really quick. It also does a pretty good job as well killing the Overseers. The Overseers are a little bit more agile, so they move around a lot. So that kind of hurts, I would say, the rate of fire with this weapon. And again, the sights on it kind of suck. But overall, the Railgun is really good still. It's just, yeah, fire rate, I wouldn't use it against the vote list. So it's more so, again, for Harvesters and for Overseers.
Incoming transmission.
Helldivers, you need to work on encrypting your transmissions. But since I'm here, I might as well help out your little tier list, and I'll deliver to you the first S tier weapon, and that is the anti-material rifle, also known as the AMR. You put this weapon in any capable Helldiver's hands, and the Illuminate, they'll never know what hit them. And if you disagree, well, I guess I'll see you planetside. Or maybe you won't.
Oh, that was weird. AMR's in S tier? Well, that kind of makes sense. The AMR, like the range that you have with it, the rate of fire, just the raw power. Yeah, I could see the AMR in S tier. So sure, let's go ahead and move on to, I would say, the laser category. That's going to be the Quasar Cannon and then the regular laser cannon. Now let's go with the Quasar Cannon first. I'm sticking this into B tier. It's a solid choice, but that charge time between shots can feel really, really bad, especially if you miss like 2 in a row. Well, gee, Helldiver, you just need to have 100% accuracy and never miss. Haha. Okay, John Helldiver, geez. Okay. Anyways, beside the point, missing with this weapon feels bad. But what I do like about it is the fact that it does rip a shield with one shot. But then you gotta wait for that charge, and by that time that charges up, their shield coming back up is probably really soon, so that can be a little bit tricky. But this thing does have a lot of raw power, and so also the fact that this thing it's a stratagem weapon all by itself, right? So it doesn't require a backpack, so it does get a little bit more points for that. And then also it's unlimited ammo, so it's really just that charge. So I think it's above the Stalwart a bit. I would say just probably, I would say in the upper echelon of B tier. I know some people love the Quasar Cannon. I do think it sits somewhere in B tier. I just think the rate of fire really hurts it. And the fact that Illuminate have shields, so having that charge time, yeah, it does not feel great. So I'm gonna keep it in B tier there. Still, B tier is solid and it's good, guys. Okay, I don't want to make it seem like the Quasar Cannon's bad, because it's not. I just think, again, with those shields and the rate of fire, yeah, it can feel a little rough. Or there's going to be other weapons that can do the Quasar Cannon's job, but probably a little bit better, at least more towards my playstyle, kind of. And speaking of that, the laser cannon. This thing, I'm not a laser guy. You know, I don't like the scythe at all. I don't like the dagger at all. And this laser cannon here, I mean, it's just like, it goes into A tier. It's really good, actually. I'm not a laser guy, and even I can admit that the laser cannon itself is really good. It does that sustained fire, and that is really strong against the shields. On top of the laser cannon already being really good at taking out the chaff and taking out Overseers. Obviously, throw the Watcher in there as well. So yeah, the laser cannon, it kind of covers everything. You'll notice in the A tier right now, these are all sustained fire weapons with the heavy machine gun and the regular machine gun, but also they take out harvesters too. So they're covering everything you go up against, and they kill them reliably and fast. Not to mention, they're really easy to use. Now the AMR being up there, I could see some people being like, ugh, because the AMR is not for everybody, you know. But again, S tier there, it's my favorite out of the A tier, essentially. So let's move on to the rocket launchers. Okay, here. Let's start with the expendable. The expendable is not great against the Illuminates, just because, again, the fire rate. You get one shot, and then you got to go back and get your other expendable. And really, all these rocket launchers, they need to be able to take out the harvesters. Now, when you do hit a harvester weak spot, so the leg joint, yes, this thing one-shots it. So I'm putting it at the very, very back end of B tier. And I will follow the expendable anti-tank with the commando, which I'm throwing straight into S tier. Now, what's the difference here? Well, the Commando has 4 rockets that you can fire in rapid succession that all will one-shot a Harvester's weak spot. And because of that fire rate, you don't need to take out its shield with your primary or some other stratagem. So the Commando can do it all on its own, and if you do, say, want to take out a Harvester's shield with, again, your primary, the Commando should be able to take out 4 Harvesters if you have that 100% accuracy. And even if you don't, there's a lot of ease of use with this weapon. It's very forgiving, has those guided rockets, and the cooldown to get another one is really short. At the moment, fighting the Illuminates, yeah, I'm having a really good time picking the Commando or picking the AMR. So that's why these two are sitting in S tier for me. But now let's swing back to old reliable here, and that is the Recoilless. The Recoilless is really good. It's going into A tier. It has great, I would say, longevity during a mission. This thing also has that alternate fire to take out chaff. Now, I don't recommend that because there's a long cooldown or there's a long reload time between shots. So I don't really think that's a great use of your rockets, but you do at least have that option. Now, there is no doubt that eventually when the Illuminates get more forces that are stronger and beefier, the Recoilless would probably slip into that S tier position. But at the moment, I would say there's just not a lot of targets for it to be carrying around the Stratagem weapon and then the backpack. For something like the Commando here, you don't need to rely on a backpack, and then you can also pick up weapons on the field and be completely fine because you can just call this down whenever you want. And that's basically why I have the Commando up in S tier here and the Recoilless in A tier. Now moving to the last two, the Airburst Rocket Launcher and the Spear. I actually don't recommend either one of these, sadly. The Spear, you have to have a lock on target. It's not a guaranteed kill all the times, depending on the angle. And we're talking about against Harvesters because that's really the only target these two, or this one, the Spear is for. And the Spear also requires its backpack as well. It's a big investment for something that has a long reload time, has to lock on as well. And again, you don't even get the one shot every time. It's not guaranteed. So that's why it's going to be sitting in D tier. Now the Airburst, on the other hand, this thing is meant for chaff kill, but everything that is meant for chaff clearing that is above it does it so much better, and they don't have such long reload times like the Airburst does. Not to mention that the Airburst, there's a good chance it'll actually kill you or your teammates depending on how you fire it. It's like a niche pick, but I really don't like it, so that's why it's also going to sit in Don't Bring. The Airburst, honestly guys, it's really just meant for Shriekers. Everything else about it, I want it to be better. It's a really cool looking rocket launcher, but I have just never liked this thing. And against the Illuminates, yeah, I do not recommend it. So let's move on to the, grenade launcher, the autocannon, and then the new stratagem weapon, the Wasps. Now, at the recording of this video, the Wasp is not available to us to purchase for requisition, but we did get to try it out as a bonus stratagem, and I gotta imagine it's gonna become available to us soon. So for the grenade launcher, it's just a stratagem weapon, doesn't require a backpack. This thing is old reliable. I think this might be also an A tier. It's the fact that how quickly it kills Voteless and then Overseers as well, and Watchers. I keep forgetting to add Watchers in there, but yeah, it kills all of them very efficiently. 1 to 2 grenades if it's an Overseer, depending on the angle, maybe 3, but it does a really good job at it. It's just a really well-rounded weapon, and it destroys shields really quick because of its rapid fire. I think I have to stick the grenade launcher in A tier. Now, it's not the most reliable at killing Harvesters, at least when I use it, when I'm trying to aim for the leg joint or the eye. Sometimes I get good results, sometimes I don't. But for everything else on the field, for blowing up warp ships that are parked, yeah, it does a really good job at basically everything else. So that's why I'm sticking it in A tier here. Now the autocannon, on the other hand, it also has an alt fire for more of a crowd control cluster shot there. I don't really find myself using that too often, but its base fire there is really good. So where do I want to stick this? It's either going to be in B tier or it's going to be in A tier. I need a minute to think about this one. So with the autocannon, you do have to stop to reload it, and you also, another trick with it is you don't want to basically shoot all the rounds then reload, because then that reload animation just takes longer. So you want to reload this thing as soon and as fast as possible as you can, but you do have to stop for that. And then also firing it in quick succession can kind of make it a little bit unwieldy as well if you're not used to it, but it does really good damage. I'm gonna keep it. Oh man, this is a tough one. This one really, it kind of depends on like my most recent time using it, because sometimes you do just feel really good using this thing, and then other times you're like, ugh, I feel like I'm just reloading all the time. So this is why this one's kind of like, this one's taking me a minute. Would I rather take the autocannon over the railgun? I'm just looking in the B tier for it now. I think I would rather take the autocannon. Now, would I rather take the autocannon over the grenade launcher? I don't think so. I'm going to keep autocannon in solid and B tier. I know this one might not be a popular pick, but it's kind of what I'm feeling at the moment. Okay, now we're moving on to the kill zone crossover weapon, the Wasp launcher. Now this thing, admittedly, I did not vibe with it at first, and I need to put more time in with it because it does one-shot overseers, but the thing is, the range on this thing is, you need to be kind of in that mid to long range, or else the missiles will just zip around. Not to mention the fact that they will hit buildings that are next to you or buildings that are next to them. So it's kind of got to be like in an open field, or there's a lot of like nuance with this weapon. You know, it's not the easiest to use, but I feel like once you kind of master and know what it's capable of, this thing can be an absolute monster. It also has an artillery mode, which it's not my favorite, but it can be really effective, especially at long range. I don't like using this thing on harvesters, but for overseers, if you put this thing in artillery mode and they have a bunch of voteless around them, yeah, you'll just shred all of them with this thing. And it's also new, so it's like shiny, you know, it's exciting. I'm going to put it in B tier, but just know I need more time under my belt with this one. I would rather bring it over the Quasar Cannon. Oh, sorry, Quasar Cannon. I'm going to move it down a little bit more. I like the Stalwart a little bit better than the Quasar Cannon at the moment. I think I'll keep it around here. And so now that brings up kind of like the miscellaneous weapons. They're kind of like the throwers. That's what they're called. They're called the throwers. You got like a flamethrower, you got a sterilizer thrower, and you got the arc thrower. Genius. Now, these are probably the biggest ones when it comes to what I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video about pairing these stratagem weapons with an armor perk. Like for armor perk wise, pairing the Peak Physique, the Viper Commando armor perk with the heavy machine gun and the regular machine gun, that's a really good pick. I guess the AMR as well. That really helps out the handling with those things. But with the three thrower weapon here, I don't know what else to call them. I'll work on that. Miscellaneous weapons. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. Pairing these ones with the arc resistance armor is really, really strong. Because say in the case with the flamethrower can kill harvesters pretty well. But the problem with that is getting up close, and harvesters have their own like arc thrower ability, and that'll stun you and kill you, and it's really strong if you don't have arc resistance. But with the flamethrower, if you don't have arc resistance armor on, I do not recommend going after harvesters with this thing. I would just stick to the voteless and the overseers and watchers, and it does a really good job at killing those enemies. Now, the only, I would say, maybe thing against it is the fact that the regular overseers, they are really annoying if they get up close to you and just start hitting you, because then they ragdoll you and they can just keep you down until you're dead. So that is something to consider when you do have to get kind of like up close and personal with these weapons. But with that being said, I do think the flamethrower, again, when you do pair it with the arc resistance armor, I am going to put it in A tier for that. Now, if you don't have the arc resistance, I think it would slide down to B tier. Now, for the sterilizer here, this thing is a niche pick. It does a good job at killing voteless, and it's because voteless are a large majority of the Illuminate forces, them and the overseers. The sterilizer does a good job at confusing them and eventually killing them. It's just kind of like a more control play style. It doesn't kill as fast as obviously the flamethrower, but it does its job, I would say. So I think the sterilizer belongs in C tier as a niche pick. I think honestly the sterilizer in general and every tier list should always be in like the niche category, because it's really not for everybody. And then but it is effective. It does have a use. It's just like, yeah, a lot of people don't run the sterilizer. And then for the arc thrower here. So the arc thrower kind of does the exact same thing as the flamethrower, except for you've got a little bit more range with it, and obviously how it does it is a little bit different, where it staggers forces and then the lightning arc bolt like jumps between targets. But it does a really good job locking down, again, those more chaff to medium type of enemies. So the overseers, the watchers, the voteless, it does a really good job at locking them down. But when it comes to harvesters, yeah, it does a pretty decent job at ripping off the shield, but killing a harvester with this thing, you're going to be there for a while, and I don't really recommend that. And I think you can achieve being really efficient with this weapon without needing to pair it with like an armor perk. So that's why I'm going to put it above the flamethrower, because I do like the distance that you are allowed with this weapon. So it's a little bit safer. Now you do have, I guess, a pretty good chance of killing a teammate if they're in the area, but you know, that also applies for a flamethrower, so they have to watch out, you know? Okay, so now we're at the end here. This is my list so far. Is there anything I want to shuffle around and maybe give another thought? So let me take a moment here. You know, I am pretty happy with this list overall. In the times that I fight the Illuminate, yes, the AMR and the Commando, these are the two that I use all the time, and I have a blast using them. And also, when I pick up these two machine guns, I'm having a really good time with them. Even the laser cannon, and I'm not a laser guy. I have a really good time with it, and I see how effective it is. Now, I do also use the railgun and then the auto cannon a lot, but I do feel like there's times where there's a little bit of tension or a little bit of difficulty being efficient or effective with these two sometimes, where I feel like, God, it's like they're just not killing as fast, or they're just not like gelling with how I'm trying to play compared to these, you know, these other ones up here. Now, when it comes to recoilless here, yeah, this thing's an absolute monster when taking out those heavier targets. I would recommend ripping a shield off of, say, obviously a warp ship or a harvester, and then using this against them. And they go down really quick, especially, again, you got to hit them in their weak spots, but it's really easy to hit those weak spots with the recoilless. And it's just old reliable. I think I'm going to bump it down a little bit because I think this rocket launcher style isn't as strong against the Illuminate, but it doesn't mean this one's bad. It's just, again, we're talking about the Commando here. Commando's so good. And then the grenade launcher, a little bit more of a jack of all trades. So that's why I'd put it here. I'd probably actually, I'm going to keep the recoilless here. No, man. The arc thrower, it's really, really good too. I'll probably do this. Oh man, that might piss off some people. it's in A tier, okay? It's really good, guys. Again, we're splitting hairs really with these two categories because the Illuminate, they're not hard. You're going to be really effective with everything being up, you know? But I think this is my list. All right, yes, now I am happy with this list. This is what I'm going to live with for the next couple days until I want to change my mind. So Helldivers, let me know what your favorite stratagem weapons are specifically against the Illuminates. And maybe when I get back from break, I'll do another tier list on, say, the orbitals, the offensive stratagems. But I just want to cover the stratagem weapons because these are what I feel like I'm using the most against the Illuminates. I don't feel like I need to use my Eagle airstrikes or orbitals. I feel like these weapons are getting like so much work done just on their own. But anyways, that's my list. I'm off for a week on vacation because it's the holidays. So I hope you Helldivers have a safe and fun holiday, and I will see you when I get back. Peace and take care.